everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Oldish Live. Are you sad? It's winter. You're sad. SAD is a really great acronym. It stands for Seasonal Affective Disorder, and it definitely has an impact on older adults. My name is Karen Brown. I'm the publisher and editor of The Oldish, and we're going to be talking about your seasonal mood today. As we head into winter, you know, it's that time of year when we bundle up a little bit more. I've got a sweater on today. Christmas is coming. Moods tend to be a little bit elevated as we look forward to family gatherings. We're out and about buying gifts, attending holiday parties. Christmas comes, the new year comes. You know, we drink the champagne and toot the horns and welcome in the new year. And then there's nothing. It's just a long road to spring. It's not surprising to me that people can get sad, and I don't mean necessarily seasonal affective disorder, but just that their mood declines somewhat. We do have to be careful about that sort of thing with older adults, however, and let's get into why. So SAD, seasonal affective disorder, is in fact a form of depression. We already know that depression affects older adults differently than younger adults. It's more severe, and it takes longer to resolve. Depressive disorders can also be mistaken for dementia. This is really important. Depressive disorders can be mistaken for dementia. I think these days it can be the easy diagnosis. Oh, he or she has dementia. No, maybe he or she is just being affected by the seasonal change. And we need to be very careful about that because these sorts of mood disorders do cycle with the season. They are most common in the winter. They do affect women more often than they affect men. Older adults who live alone, whether they are male or female, are particularly prone. So if you know somebody who is living alone, you might want to pay a little bit more attention. New research is indicating that seasonal shifts in the northern hemisphere have an effect on cognition in older adults. So the northern hemisphere is where a lot of us live. A lot of our readers live in North America or in the northern part of Europe. And this research was done on people, 3,000 people actually. Some of them had dementia, some of them didn't. They found that there is a decline in cognitive function in the late winter and early spring. That's interesting. It makes sense because dementia is more apparent in the winter and the early spring as well. Okay, so that's not necessarily people who have seasonal affective disorder. People who already have a diagnosis of dementia have more pronounced symptoms in the winter and early spring. Okay, so separate that. SAD is not necessarily dementia, but if you already have dementia, the symptoms may well be more pronounced in the winter and early spring. There are a lot of articles on theoldish.com about seasonal affective disorder and about depression in older adults, so I would certainly encourage you to go and read that. You can just, in the search bar, put depression, and the articles will pop up for you. So what are the symptoms you're looking for? Lack of energy, lack of focus, issues with memory are more pronounced, trouble sleeping, aches and pains. Does that sound familiar? It can be symptomatic of a lot of things. But if it's in the wintertime, seasonal affective disorder is definitely something that you should consider. Research has indicated that sunlight, or the lack of it, seems to be the contributing factor to seasonal affective disorder. I'm not surprised at that research at all. The winter months definitely see less sunshine. So what can we do? Phototherapy is one thing. You can buy lights that simulate sunlight, and I believe you have them on. You don't stare at them, but you are in their presence for a given period of time every day, 30 minutes or some such thing. I'm going to do some research on those, and if I find one that seems to make sense to include in our 2019 gift guide, I will do that. I think that there are some that are not too terribly expensive, and of course there are others that are going to be beastly expensive, so Give me a bit of time and I'll do some research and I will report back to you. There was a small study in the Netherlands that found that installing brighter daytime light brought about a 19% decrease in depressive symptoms among a population that had already been diagnosed with dementia. And there was a 5% lower rate of cognitive decline. So I assume that this study was done in a long-term care facility. It didn't say, it just talked about the study that was done. What else can you do? Get outside. Get outside. That makes a bunch of sense. The jury is still out on whether or not adding vitamin D to your supplements is a good thing. But as always, if you add a medication, and yes, vitamins are a medication, if you're adding a medication to your list, talk with your doctor first and make sure of how it interacts with everything else you're already taking. Make plans to keep your mood elevated over the winter months. You definitely need to be proactive. And you know that proactivity is one of the foundations of the oldish. So be proactive for yourself. Make plans. Actually sit down and make plans. Get outside. Go for a walk. Create or join a walking group. Join the grandkids in some of their activities if your grandkids live nearby. If you're in a snowy climate, make a snowman with them. A lot of kids spend a lot of time on tech devices indoors, so show them how it's done. You know how to do that. Visit the neighbors. Invite the neighbors in to visit you. That social activity is really important. Video chats with family and friends. Not the number one thing that you should do, because face-to-face conversation gets those endorphins pumping in a way that video chatting doesn't. But if that's your only option, if you're snowed in or if you have mobility challenges, video conferencing is better than nothing, for sure. Social plans, go and make some plans with your friends to have coffee. Invite them in for coffee. Have a baking group for, Christmas is coming, so, baking groups at the church or in your own home to make a variety of cookies, to have a cookie exchange. That'd be great. In the new year, you could do Valentine's cookies for your local elementary school or for your grandkids. That'd be great. Get a group together to do something like that. Go for a walk together, as we've already mentioned. How about a movie? You could get together and go see a movie. You could even do movies in each other's homes. I remember years ago when a bunch of us had young kids and we didn't necessarily always have the extra money to pay for a babysitter. We would take turns hosting a movie night in our homes. And the host would choose a movie. Of course, that was back in the day when you went to the store and you rented the CD. Might have even been VHS tapes too. But now, you just, with a few clicks, you can get them on your TV. If you're on Netflix, scads of movies there. All right? Incidentally, let me tell you about this thing on Netflix that I found. Hallmark does all these Christmas movies? Well, my new favorite podcast is called Deck the Hallmark. That's what it's called, Deck the Hallmark. And now I'm telling you this because this is something that you could actually do amongst your friends. You could have a little Facebook challenge about this. Deck the Hallmark is a podcast that 3 men put together. These are family guys. They're married, they've got children. One of them loves Christmas movies. One of them thinks they're okay. The other one cannot stand the Hallmark Christmas movies. So these 3 guys got together and they decided that Hallmark had released 26 movies that year. They would do a podcast on each one of the Hallmark Christmas movies. So they watch these movies and they analyze them. They analyze the storyline. They analyze the veracity of the statements that are being made. They'll say things like, the ending is all the same on all of these things. So how they get to it, though, changes a little bit. They'll say things like, there was snow, like so much snow that the car couldn't move. And yet 3 blocks away, there was hardly any snow at all on the ground. What is up with that? It's hilarious. So watching the Hallmark Christmas movies and listening to these podcasts, really fun. So you could get a group together and watch any old movie. It doesn't have to be a Christmas movie. It can be any old movie. And you could do your own review of it and you could post it online to a Facebook group. How's that? All right, there. Just came up with an idea for you. Something to do over the winter. Exercise. Plan to exercise. You know, I get that it's difficult sometimes in the wintertime to go outside and to be safe, because we always want you to be safe. When there's ice and snow around, it can be very challenging. Totally understand that. Look for YouTube videos. Tai Chi, yoga. I have a treadmill in my house, as I've said many times. I'm on the treadmill and I'm watching movies, just anything to keep my mind amused, because I don't love exercise. I'll be honest. I do not love it. You could also join a community recreation program. That's good. You know, if they have a group that does Tai Chi or yoga, because these are really good balance exercises for older adults, then maybe some of you could go out for coffee afterward. That'd be okay. You know, if you did that once a week, that would really lift your mood. You can consider a photo light therapy piece if you don't get out as often as you'd like. And I have one more suggestion for you, and that is to make your bucket list of things to do. You know, travel plans. And I don't mean bucket list as though you're going to kick the bucket. I just mean things to do, to look forward to as the weather in 2019 lightens up and lets us get outside a little more. You might decide that you want to take the grandkids on a picnic. I'm not sure that modern day kids do picnics very much. You might want to take a cooking class. You might want to travel someplace. You might want to take a cruise or go on a safari, or just rent a cottage up north someplace on a lake where the family can get together, or you can just have quiet time by yourself. Make that bucket list of things you'd like to do, things you'd like to learn. Speaking of learning, I just thought of another thing you can do over the winter months. You could learn a language. There are tons of language courses online. You could learn the language of the country that you want to go visit. You see? Not hard to come up with things to do. And I think that if you keep your mind engaged and occupied, it's much easier to avoid the symptoms of seasonal affective disorder. There you go. Okay, people, that is our show for today. I do hope that you found some tips and tricks and that you will advocate for yourself and definitely make every attempt to avoid yourself plunging into something called seasonal affective disorder. Stay happy. Remember, it does indeed take a village to age a senior.